Defense, CON-MNI, the Honorable Chairman, Senate Committee on Defense, Distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawan, and the representative of the Chairman, House Committee on Defense, ably represented by Honorable Abdullahi Kalambaina, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, ably represented by Ambassador Dunoma, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Service Chiefs and Inspector General of Police, former Chiefs of Defense and Service Chiefs here present, heads of ministries, departments and agencies, heads of paramilitary organizations, heads of defense institutions and formations, principal staff officers from defense and service headquarters, commanders and commandants of military units and formation, very senior officers, both serving and retired, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen of the press. It is both an honor and a privilege to be before you such and the distinguished gathering of leaders who are at the forefront of safeguarding our nation's peace and security. The Chief of Defense Staff Joint Task Force Commanders Conference provides a critical platform for us to reflect on our collective efforts, assess our progress, and strategize for the challenges ahead. It is an opportunity to strengthen our collaboration, share insights, and reaffirm our commitment to the defense of our great nation. Let me first appreciate everyone for making time out of your very busy schedules to be here today. We warmly recognize and welcome our distinguished special guest of honor, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, ably represented by our dear Honorable Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badru Abakar, CON-MNI. Your Excellency, your presence today further epitomizes Mr. President's zeal and determination to bring in a lasting solution to the security challenges facing our country. Let me begin by commending the unwavering dedication and sacrifice of our officers and men across the various joint task forces. Your relentless efforts in combating insurgency, terrorism, and banditry and other security threats have not gone unnoticed. The successes recorded in recent operations are a testament to your professionalism, resilience, and commitment to duty. You have demonstrated that through unity of purpose and effective collaboration, we can achieve remarkable results. However, while we celebrate these achievements, we must remain vigilant. The security landscape continues to evolve, presenting new and complex challenges. Evolving threats such as the employment of armed drones, transnational crimes, and the proliferation of improvised explosive devices demand innovative and adaptive responses. This conference is therefore an opportunity to critically examine these challenges and develop actionable strategies to address them. We must leverage technology, enhance intelligence sharing, and strengthen interagency cooperation to stay ahead of these threats. As it is, no one organization, no one individual can do this alone. It's a collective challenge against Nigeria and Nigerians. We must stand together. Consequently, the theme of this conference, Enhancing Jointness Across All Theaters of Operation, has been carefully crafted to specifically target a perennial challenge which has negatively impacted our overall efforts. The theme focuses on the concept of jointness as a major determinant for operational success, particularly within the context of a complex and dynamic contemporary security environment. The concept of jointness remains at the core of our operational success and is a pillar of my leadership concept, which is to nurture a professional armed forces of Nigeria that is people-centric, capable of meeting its constitutional responsibilities in a joint and collaborative environment. Thus, as commanders, you play a pivotal role in fostering this spirit of collaboration. I therefore urge you to continue building bridges, sharing resources, and working as a cohesive team. Together, we are stronger, and together we will prevail. As we deliberate over the next few days, let us keep in mind the trust reposed in us by the Nigerian people. They look up to us to protect their lives, properties, and freedom. We must not fail them. Let us approach this conference with open mind, a willingness to learn, and a determination to innovate. Let us live here with a clear roadmap of addressing the security challenges of our time. I will surely expect that we will engage in robust discussions, ask questions, and challenge any assumption to forge more effective paths for our operations. In closing, I want to thank the organizers of this conference for putting together such a timely and important event. I extend my gratitude to all participants for their dedication and service to our nation. Permit me to sincerely express our profound gratitude to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for his sterling leadership and outstanding commitment, as well as support to the armed forces and security agencies across the country. Your Excellency will remain immensely grateful. I also express my gratitude to the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, MNI, our Honorable Minister of Defense, Minister of State Defense, and other ministers here present, service chiefs, and Inspector General of Police for honoring our invitation. To the heads of all department and agencies present here today, I say a big thank you for obliging us with your presence. We have continued to work together, and we are eternally grateful for doing that. Lastly, we cannot but also acknowledge and appreciate the presence of our mentors, former chiefs of defense staff and service chiefs, for sharing this special occasion with us. This time around, we tried to tweak the conference to ensure that we take on the lecture so that we benefit from it, discuss before we disperse this morning. And so want to oblige that we please take time to stay around so that we can listen to the situations on ground and be able to provide solutions. Because as we mentioned, the challenges confronting Nigeria is a Nigerian challenge, and we need all hands on deck to find a solution. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed with the conference, let us remember that the security of Nigeria is a collective responsibility. By working together, we can ensure a safer and more prosperous future for all Nigerians. I thank you, and I wish you all fruitful deliberations. Thank you, and God bless you, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here again after a long while. I tried to approximate the DHQ color with my tie, but when I came, I looked at some cars outside and I saw that it wasn't really the correct color. Pardon me for that. I will see if I can get a better tie next time. The topic is okay. Agency operations, strategic options and imperatives for the armed forces of Nigeria. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here today amongst the Nigerian Armed Forces finest. Were the armed forces to be represented by a spear, you, the task force commanders, and your men will be the fighting tip of that spear, without which the whole contraption will be ineffective. I therefore must thank the Chief of Defense Staff of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for finding me fit to make some remarks to this eminent body of fighting men and eminent gentlemen. Conflict is as old as mankind. Its resolution is therefore a matter which must be taken very seriously. As is common to all serious issues, particularly those that portend dire consequences if not expertly handled, a lot of thought has to be brought to bear before determining the best courses of action. Thinking and planning in any military enterprise are so important that the system loads the defense headquarters with a bevy of generals. Contrary to the wrong notion that the DHQ is an old people's home, the large number of generals in any senior military headquarters, such as the defense headquarters, is to endow that organization with sufficient thinking power so that before the spear is employed, the thinking and planning should have taken place. It is the defense headquarters that should envision future threats and conflicts based on present and past events, and consequently, plan on how to counter it using men, equipment, and competencies that are either already available or procurable for the various services of the armed forces. A most significant part of the planning process is, of course, the decision on how to tackle the threat or challenge that is facing the country. For example, what is the nature of the threat or conflict? And should it be tackled by an all-out war or a low-intensity operation? Can one single service handle the challenge, or will there be need to raise a joint task force? Should other agencies of government have a role to play, and if yes, which agencies should be involved? These and other questions must be answered before taking any other step. It is the responsibility of the Defense Headquarters to answer these questions and brief government appropriately through the Honorable Minister of Defense. It must be borne in mind that once the decision to use the armed forces operationally is taken, the responsibility for the operational use of part of or the whole of the armed forces of Nigeria rests with its commander-in-chief, who is the President of the Federal Republic. He is, however, authorized to delegate that duty to only one serving officer in the armed forces, the Chief of Defense Staff. This is clearly explained in the National Defense Policy. It is already well established that countering insurgency and its associated acts of terror hardly succeeds using force alone. Examples abound, and the most recent is the state of Israel and Hamas. The armed forces of Israel, known as the Israeli Defense Force, is perhaps the most powerful in the Middle East. The Israeli Defense Force, or IDF, was the scourge of Egypt, the conqueror of the Sinai Peninsula, the disciplinarian of Syria, and the virtual overlord of Jordan and Lebanon. Arab countries catch cold when Israel sneezes. When it comes to interstate conflict in the Middle East, every country gives Israel a lot of respect. But did the IDF achieve its Israeli government-given mandate of wiping out the seemingly ragtag Hamas after several months of the occupation and destruction of Gaza? The answer is no. Rather, after suffering horrendous casualties on both sides, they are both exchanging prisoners in the full glare of the whole world, as if both of them are two sovereign states. This shows the difficulty involved in countering insurgency and terrorism using brute force alone. Indeed, I have said repeatedly that military force in an insurgency carries only 20 to 30% of the effort necessary to defeat it. The remaining 70 to 80% of the effort should be provided by other agencies of government and the society itself. My aim, therefore, is to discuss a way forward for the armed forces of Nigeria in a whole-of-society approach to counter terrorism and counter-insurgency operations. To achieve that aim, I will briefly speak to the twin concepts of counter-insurgency and counter-terrorism before looking at the concept of a whole-of-society. We will then discuss the whole-of-society approach to countering insurgency and terrorism before listing the efforts necessary for tackling terrorism. Finally, we will look at the options and imperatives of the armed forces of Nigeria in a whole-of-society approach to countering terrorism and insurgency. Let's talk about some concepts, very few. Militaries traditionally train for interstate conflicts. That is, two countries after each other. However, we all know that what Nigeria has on its hands now is an insurgency perpetrated by Boko Haram and ISWAP, making it an intrastate conflict. An insurgency is a rebellion or revolt. Most dictionaries will tell you that. A rebellion is armed resistance to an established government. On the other hand, a terrorist is a person or group or organization that uses violent action or the threat of violent action to further political goals. Therefore, terrorism in our situation is simply a tool by Boko Haram and ISWAP to further their political goals. Let's take a quick look at the concept of whole of society. It is used globally by various organizations for common societal approach to address issues of concern. Whole of society approach in national security has been defined as having a role for civil society and other non-governmental actors, as well as relevant government actors across several sectors in the prevention of violent extremism. It refers to a strategy where all sectors of society, including the government, private sector, civil society, and individuals, actively collaborate and contribute to safeguarding a nation's security by addressing threats through a comprehensive and coordinated effort. Note the word coordinated effort. It goes beyond solely military means to encompass social, economic, and environmental factors. It must be noted, however, that whole of society approach to national security requires effective coordination and measurement of effectiveness of all the several stakeholders for it to yield maximum value. Let's quickly talk about whole of society approach to countering terrorism and insurgency. Ayman Zawahiri, the late Arab terrorist kingpin or freedom fighter, depending on which side of the divide you are on, wrote, and I quote, "I say to you that we are in a battle, and more than half of this battle is in the battlefield of the media. More than half is in the battlefield of the media. And that we are in a media battle in a race for the hearts and minds of our Ummah." Of course, Ummah meaning the people, society. And that however far our capabilities reach, they will never be equal to 1,000 of the capabilities of the kingdom of Satan that is waging war on us. The kingdom of Satan, of course, you know, and in the West, it was waging war on them. Zawahiri understood that the key to success for any insurgent or terrorist lies in winning the people over to his side, so that the target society sees the government as unfair, corrupt, inept, oppressive. Therefore, any counter-terror or counter-insurgency operation that fails to include the whole of society as stakeholders will most likely fail. The tasks required to counter insurgency and its associated acts of terror are well documented in various publications, including that of the British government's counter strategy, the Nigerian government's several documents, national security strategy, policy framework and national action plan for preventing and countering violent extremism, and the counter-terrorism strategy. These documents stress the need for a whole of government and whole of society approach to countering terrorism and insurgency. In fact, the National Defense Policy calls it total defense. Total defense. There are some efforts that must be there to counter terrorism, and I've broken them into just 4 parts. Stop terrorist attacks, stop people from becoming or associating with terrorists, strengthen our protection against attacks, reduce the impact of attacks when they have occurred. Now, insurgents will not advertise when and where they intend to attack. The most effective way to counter insurgents and their terror attacks is through intelligence. The importance of intelligence in counter-insurgency, counter-terror operations cannot be overemphasized. Now, there's the intelligence resources curve, which you are seeing on the screen. Unfortunately, I don't think I can point from here. But if you look at where the dotted lines are, the intelligence line is, of course, on the x-axis. So imagine where you have 100% intelligence. And then if you extrapolate that and you look to the resources that you will need, both human and material, this is very low indeed. Let me give an example. If we knew every time where Boko Haram will strike us, when they used to be able to do that, if we knew every time when they will strike us, where they will strike us, we don't need more than 50 special forces men from the army. We will just get the Air Force to give us a C-130 and move them from one spot to the other, waiting for these terrorists to strike. But you see, the moment the intelligence starts, you are not getting enough intelligence. And then look at the next dotted line, which is closer to the zero. When it goes up and you extrapolate it, you will see that there is a humongous increase in the resources that you would need to now tackle that insurgency, both human and material. Indeed, if you tend towards zero intelligence, the resources and material that you, both human and material that you will need, will be tending towards infinity. Intelligence is a big issue in asymmetric warfare. Failure to procure and possess the right intelligence at the right time will usually result in failure, or at best, a stalemate. Again, let's go back to Hamas and the state of Israel. It's an ongoing asymmetric situation. Had Israel been able to locate the various positions of all the hostages held by Hamas, I doubt if there will be a ceasefire today. I assure you that the conflict would have taken a different direction that would be much worse for Hamas. But as things stand, one of the best armed forces in the world has been fought to a standstill by a seemingly ragtag but very determined group of insurgents. The question is, who is best positioned to obtain intelligence on insurgents? I believe the people who are in contact with them should be the first and quickest source, which means you, the task force commanders. The people who are closest to them and make contact with them almost on a daily basis, the task force commanders and their troops. As I've said, there are other stakeholders in this particular effort. In addition to actively attacking and arresting insurgents, the Nigeria Police Force must investigate and prosecute terror offenses. The intelligence community must gather intelligence on the insurgents. the courts must try the arrested terrorists expeditiously so as to get them out of circulation. The legislature must pass new laws when necessary to quickly incarcerate known supporters of insurgency and terrorism. And the Nigerian Finance Intelligence Unit, NFIU, must trace the sources of terrorist financing. Indeed, to us observers outside, we believe it was when the NFIU actually traced the source of financing for Boko Haram that Boko Haram started winning. You hardly hear Boko Haram again. Well, even if you hear them, they can no longer, put up all those attacks that they used to put up. There was a time they attacked one DIV headquarters, our CDS. One DIV headquarters, our strongest military unit, as at that time, was attacked by Boko Haram with a bomb load of, a bomb load of trucks. Other sources of human intelligence could include Okada riders, taxi drivers, transporters, market women. They are all very useful in gathering intelligence. Now, it's one thing to be fighting to about how do we stop people from becoming terrorists? It is the duty of the Nigeria Police Force and the military and other paramilitary organizations to ensure that the lifespan of a terrorist is very short indeed. Therefore, they will need replacement at a fairly rapid rate. Anything that prevents terrorist recruitment degrades their strength. To achieve that task, we must, among other things, get respected Muslim clergy, traditional rulers, respected community leaders and teachers to educate the people about the true teachings in the Quran in mosques, schools, via radio, and other popular news media. So, of course, we're talking about Ministry of Information, National Orientation Agency, Ministry of Education, virtually everybody. Second, we must address the grievances of the insurgents. If what they are actually after makes sense, we should try to address it. Thirdly, we must empower those who are vulnerable to being recruited. Okay, so if we know that they recruit from this area or that area, we must help that area for the people to stand strong. They must have jobs, they must have money in their pockets, otherwise they will follow Boko Haram. And then education. You must educate the people. You must educate the people. I think by now education in primary schools should be, I think it's free, but I don't think it is compulsory. We must, of course, protect against terrorist attacks. Effort must be made to protect important infrastructure, transport systems, our borders, immigration service, the lead agency, sporting venues, and all places where sizable crowds are gathered. So, Nigerian Railway Corporation, FAN, NIS, Immigration Service, all government ministries, departments, and agencies are involved, or should be involved. Then, of course, despite all efforts, it is quite possible that a few attacks will get through. But effort to reduce the impact of attacks must be taken seriously. We must have quick repair to damaged infrastructure. I remember when Boko Haram attacked one div. As I said, our CDS, General Hejrika was chief of army staff, and we discussed, and I said, look, yeah, I think they attacked that place at about 4 p.m. I said, by tomorrow morning, it must look like no bomb had exploded in one div. And I'm happy to say he achieved that feat. In fact, when I got there the next morning, I had to tell the president that, well, Yes, a bomb came into the premises and exploded, but I showed him pictures. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. Now, what that tells the people is that the government is on top of the situation. The government is ready, willing and able to get things done. Apart from that, the fire trucks must be ready, fire service. Ambulances and hospitals must be ready to attend to the injured. Quick response by the security forces to ongoing attacks are all useful in reducing the impact of attacks. Of course, the fire service, Ministry of Health, Nigeria Police Force, military, civil defense, everybody must be involved in protecting its own infrastructure. Okay, strategic options and imperatives for the armed forces of Nigeria. I've gone into some of these things. I know you already know them, but it is good to re-emphasize that everybody is supposed to be involved, and we are all supposed to be coordinated by somebody, not the military. We are supposed to be coordinated by somebody. I think right now, I suspect, it's the NSA that is doing that coordination. It has not been publicly disseminated, but I think it should. We should know who is coordinated, our efforts as far as terrorism is concerned. In the UK, it is the Minister of Interior. But it does not matter. Anybody can be designated as long as government says it to everybody, the whole society understands who is coordinating. The first imperative for you, the members of the armed forces, is to understand what concerns you in a whole of society approach in counterinsurgency and counter-terror operations. Failure to understand that you cannot do it alone will only alienate other stakeholders. They will leave the job for you. Prolong your stay in the field fighting insurgents and prolong the country's agony. Furthermore, bearing in mind that you are primarily fighting for the hearts and minds of the people, never go into any operation treating the populace as if they are second-class citizens and you are their overlord. You will not get any cooperation or intelligence from them with those attitudes. You see, the communists, every military unit has a political commissar. These commissars are there, they don't do any fighting, but they also wear uniform. Their job is to tell the military and the populace exactly the purpose of why they are fighting. To get the people on the side of the military. But I'm not at all advocating that we should start having political commissars. No. What I'm saying is, Joint Task Force commanders, it is your duty to take up that challenge. You must be able to get your forces to understand that they are not going there to go harassing the populace, because once you do that, that populace will not give you intelligence. They will not cooperate with you. We must also adhere to policy guidelines, which are already clearly spelled out in the country's national defense policy, national security strategy, and other national documents. For example, equipment, aircraft, personnel, arms and ammo allocated to a joint task force automatically come under the operational control of the Chief of Defense Staff and his Joint Task Force commanders. We've had situations in the past where aircraft, will be assigned to a task force, but to use it will become a problem. That shouldn't be. It should be the prerogative of the Joint Task Force commander as to how any equipment attached to that operation is used. They are the people statutorily tasked with operations. Let me also quickly say a few words about your logistics and your readiness. That old war horse, Napoleon Bonaparte, already said the most apt universal truth about military logistics when he observed that, and I quote, "An army marches on its belly," unquote. I must commend the various commanders-in-chief, starting from President Shehu Yar'Adua to Ebele Jonathan, General Muhammadu Buhari, and the present commander-in-chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as well as the various ministers of defense, for their unflinching support of the armed forces of Nigeria in its effort to rid our dear country of insurgents and bandits. It is now left to the armed forces itself to ensure that it gets the most bang for every buck spent. The defense budget should not be squandered on frivolities, on things that should be handled by other ministries, departments, and agencies. That is why I have always advocated that the Chief of Defense Staff should be in the budgeting and procurement loop of the armed forces. A situation where the man who is expected to do the fighting has no say in the equipment he needs to do the job cannot be said to be an efficient situation. I have sometimes heard the phrase, "the insurgents are better armed than our soldiers," and I always wonder why people will believe this absolute lie. What type of arms or ammunition can Boko Haram get that Nigeria cannot procure? What contact can Boko Haram have internationally that Nigeria does not have or cannot have? While I can agree that you may sometimes see Boko Haram with certain weapons that were hitherto not available to them, the solution is to quickly get a counter to that weapon. In any event, if the defense headquarters was given a say in the type of weapons to procure, based on the threat it had assessed, the possibility of being surprised by the type of weapon Boko Haram is fielding will be greatly reduced. Let me leave the higher management of defense for now and look at you, the war fighters. And I'm going to talk briefly about your preparedness. My appeal to you, the fighters, is to please ensure the readiness of your men at all times when in an area of active conflict. I've sometimes heard that the insurgents employ black magic. But let me assure you that the most potent traditional medicine that Boko Haram and ISWAP have is surprise. When they surprise you, that's their medicine. A body of fighting men taken by surprise is the most pathetic of all situations. Boko Haram or ISWAP, man for man, is not better trained nor better armed than the armed forces of Nigeria. Some of them were farmers, some were car washmen, they were washing cars. We saw their history. But surprise equalizes everything. You must protect your forces, and your forces must be alert. Test your defenses at all hours. Simulate attacks at any available opportunity, and do not give the insurgents breathing space. Once they are resting, you can be sure they are planning evil and mayhem. A final word on intelligence. When Boko Haram wants to attack a location in Gamboru Ngala, for example, it doesn't come to Abuja to obtain intelligence. It goes to the location to be attacked and its environs to see how prepared they are. How well can we attack? Where can we come from? It goes to where it wants to attack. For you in the field, the situation cannot be different. You must do all that is in your power to obtain sufficient intelligence to protect your forces and your operations. Whatever the empowerment that needs to be given to the Joint Task Force commanders to be able to achieve this must be given. Must be given. So yes, the DSS, NIA, CDI, they will have the sources of intelligence. They will give you, they are supposed to share that with you. However, the truth of the matter is that you that are on the spot, closest to the people that you are trying to get rid of, you are in the best position to get intelligence. So if they've not been given these resources. I suggest that they should be given to be able to look for operational intelligence for their troops. In conclusion, I will be pointing out that what is to be done, I would like to conclude by pointing out that what is to be done and who is to do it when countering insurgency and terrorism have been laid out in various policy documents of government. They are there. There's nothing secret in what I've said. What we need now is improved coordination that involves measuring the effectiveness of various agencies of government that are tasked with pushing the already laid down policies that will result in undercutting the insurgents' reason data, eliminating terrorists while denying the insurgents opportunities for further recruitment, and strengthening vulnerable communities to resist extremist ideology. I thank you all for listening.
Pressing matters of state. He has therefore requested that I represent him. Consequently, I am privileged to present his goodwill message. It is with profound sense of gratitude and pride that we acknowledge the steadfast commitment to peace and security being demonstrated by our gallant armed forces within our borders, our sub-region, and across the world. In a period marked by rapid geopolitical shifts and multifaceted security challenges, our armed forces have consistently and professionally protected our nation and adapted to bravely confronting novel threats and existential challenges to our national interest and the stability of our beloved country. Promoting peace and security is the cardinal underpinning of our foreign policy and the very bone that unites the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with the military. This shared interest has driven us to pursue our objectives through multilateral and bilateral engagements, ever mindful that Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation and largest economy, remains a beacon of hope for the continent and a source of inspiration and admiration, as well as succor for the wider world. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs takes seriously the crucial task of translating our government's and people's vision and aspirations into effective diplomatic action. At this juncture, we wish to commend the military for adopting innovative ideas and also pay tribute to a whole society approach in addressing the dual challenges of terrorism and insurgency. As we face the task and prepare for future eventualities, our response must extend beyond the conventional military paradigm to encompass diplomatic, economic, social, and cultural dimensions. In this regard, the ministry continues to maintain robust partnerships and forges new alliances through international organizations such as the United Nations, the African Union, ECOWAS, and other regional bodies, as well as through emerging initiatives such as the BRICS. Diplomacy remains a vital instrument to facilitate comprehensive cooperation on counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency. A true success story in this context is the development of the Multinational Joint Task Force, which stands as a tribute to what can be achieved when diplomatic potential is harnessed in the fight against terrorism and insecurity. While the military plays a critical role on the ground, its efforts must continue to receive the full support of robust diplomatic engagements, coordinated intelligence sharing, economic resilience programs, beneficial civic engagement, and the mobilization of society so that all stakeholders contribute their unique quota to the peace and security of our dear country. Thus, the theme of this conference is apt and timely. In conclusion, permit me to reaffirm the Ministry's unwavering commitment to advancing our national interests through strategic, coordinated, and principled action in collaboration with our armed forces and institutional partners. Let us continue to work together across all sectors to ensure that Nigeria remains a beacon of stability, a model of effective governance, and driving force for peace in Africa and beyond. I thank you for your attention.
Honorable GCFR, represented by the Honorable Minister of Defense. Let me please stand on the existing protocol as requested. I'm bringing warm greetings from the National Assembly to the Parliament. And let me say right from the onset that the topic, the theme of today's conference is very germane and apt. And it also shows that everybody matters in this country fighting for security and stability. Citizens have some roles to play. Politicians have, and of course our armed forces and other security agencies have their roles properly cut. But when we talk of citizens and everybody participating, we are talking about intelligence as well. I believe that there is need to emphasize on intelligence gathering and distribution and sharing. We can nip some of the threats in the bud, and that, in my view, is cheaper and less expensive. Therefore, investment in the intelligence sector is very, very important. Let me also say that there is need for cooperation, partnership, and synergy between all the services in the armed forces, the police, and other paramilitary agencies of government. It has always been complained in the past that sharing of intelligence sometimes is not done properly, or the agencies or services may not be working very closely as would be expected or desired. I believe that we have improved on that and we have come a long way. But there is need to do much more in terms of partnership between the services and other security agencies. If we are talking about joint task force, joint operations, and others, we should also go down to how we acquire our equipment or platforms. I believe that at the moment, the process, to me, is flawed. The CDS or the CD, the Chief of Defense Staff, or the headquarters, and the Ministry of Defense should be in the picture, full picture of our procurement process by the services. Nothing should be taken away from the services, but there must be coordination. Because in a situation where every service maybe goes ahead to make its own procurement, we may suffer from duplication and even standardization. So I believe that we should be looking at that direction. Personally, I feel at the moment it is not normal. In most climates, the defense headquarters and the Ministry of Defense coordinate such procurements in order to achieve the standardization and, in fact, stop any possible duplication of procurements. Finally, the National Assembly has always remained committed to supporting the executive arm of government in terms of funding and providing resources to our armed forces. Of all the years I've been in the National Assembly, there has never been a day that the executive will propose any investment in the military or in the armed forces and the National Assembly will say no. We have always supported, and at this point, I'll commend Mr. President for increasing the resources for 2025 budget year for the armed forces and other security agencies. But beyond the provision of resources, we must also practice prudence and economy in how we go about the expenditures. I believe that next year we should have more. We should have much more than 4.9 trillion for the armed forces and other security agencies. We should continue to invest until we secure this country. And I believe that no investment today in Nigeria is better than investing in the security of lives and property of Nigerians. Any other thing can fall in place if we are able to provide security for our citizens, to protect our borders. And in fact, we don't need to go anywhere to invite any foreign direct investment. People will flow in with their resources into our country, and even our citizens would have no need, no reason to look elsewhere to invest because of insecurity in our land. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
We are gradually coming to the end presented by our own, the Honorable Minister of Defense, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Alhaji Muhammad Badaru Abubakar, CON MNI. The Honorable Minister.
Chairman, Senate Committee on Defense, Distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawal, the Chairman, House Committee on Defense, represented by Honorable Abdullahi Kalambaina, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, ably represented by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Umar Noma, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Kobin Musa, our host, OFR, the Service Chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, former Chief of Defense Staff and Service Chiefs here present, Head of Ministries, Departments and Agencies here present, Head of Paramilitary Organizations, Head of Defense Institutions and Formations, Principal Staff Officers from Defense and Service Headquarters, Commanders and Commandants of military units and formation, very senior officers, both serving and retired, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen of the press. The President would have loved to be here with us, but for pressing other national issues. He asked me to represent him and read his address. So where I say I, is not me, is the President. So I am greatly honored to be invited to this all-important Chief of Defense Staff Joint Task Force Commanders Conference. I'm also elated to be in the midst of esteemed military leaders who have dedicated their lives to the service and defense of our beloved nation. This conference with the theme, Enhancing Jointness Across All Theaters of Operation, is no doubt a germane effort by the Armed Forces of Nigeria to bolster efficiency towards addressing the security challenges confronting our dear country. This forum is expedient and timely, especially at this time where the security landscape is dynamic and constantly evolving. Such a landscape undoubtedly requires us to harmonize our efforts and evolve proactive and innovative measures that can decisively address the security threats we are facing today. It is for this reason that the theme of this conference resonates deeply with me, as it is only through jointness, synergy, and cooperation that we can leverage our collective strengths and unique capabilities to present a unified front against all threats to our nation. Beyond the jointness of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, it is vital for us to explore effective integration of the military, police, intelligence, and other security agencies. Such an integrated approach will further strengthen our resolve to attain stipulated strategic objectives. While I applaud the tremendous effort of the armed forces, I wish also to commend the various joint task forces and security agencies operating across the country for demonstrating the tenacity to bring all armed criminals to book. This has been instrumental in ensuring peace and stability within our country. Let me assure you that I have prioritized Nigerian security and will remain committed to supporting our armed forces and other security and paramilitary agencies in discharging assigned tasks and responsibilities. Equally, I am delighted that this conference provides a unique forum for all service chiefs and commanders of Joint Task Forces to evolve their operations, re-strategize, and chart better ways for more effective performance. I therefore urge you to holistically explore in detail the concept of jointness while harnessing the power of emerging technologies and innovation. I further implore you to continue to work together to ensure multi-agency synergy on all fronts, as this will enable the armed forces of Nigeria remain agile, adaptable, and lethal force performing at its highest potential. On this note, I want to congratulate the officers and men of the armed forces of Nigeria, particularly the Chief of Defense Staff and the service chiefs, for organizing this conference. And I urge you all to remain focused on your mandate. I once again assure you of my unwavering support to the armed forces of Nigeria. On this note, I wish you all fruitful deliberations, which will help propel our nation's security forward. Thank you, and God bless Federal Republic of Nigeria.
We just listened to the act of this opening ceremony, but before we go, it is customary, the chief host, the Chief of Defense Staff, always had a way of showing appreciation to his guests. On this note,